to the Zhou, to the Han Dynasty, okay? So let's begin to enter to the Han Dynasty. Okay, and also this Han Dynasty was influenced by Confucius. All these since after the Zhou dynasty, Confucius influenced all the dynasty that came along. After the Zhou dynasty came the Qing dynasty, and then arrived to the Han dynasty that today we're going to talk about a little bit about them, because it's a very big history about the Han dynasty. So the Han dynasty government. So how was the government? The Han dynasty government was based on the ideas of Confucius. When Qing dynasty collapsed in 207 BC, several different groups battled for power. After several years of fighting, an army led by Liu Bang. Liu Bang is the character that began the Han dynasty. Liu Bang won control. Liu Bang became the first emperor of Han dynasty. This Chinese dynasty lasted, o sea que duró, for more than 400 years, o sea, más de 4 siglos duró esta dinastía. Now this is a line time that talks about what happened during those days, during the Han dynasty. Now the rise of a new dynasty, Gordon just arrived, and Pong also arrived. Okay. Liu Bang, remember, he was the first emperor in this dynasty. Liu Bang, a peasant, the meaning of the word peasant es campesino. Él era un campesino, y a pesar de ser campesino se convirtió en un emperador. Imagínense. Liu Bang, a peasant, was able to become emperor in large part because of the Chinese belief in the mandate of heaven. ¿Se acuerdan que el cielo era que le decía a uno, tú vas a ser el elegido para ser el emperador? Bueno, pues, según la historia, él fue el elegido. He was the first common person to become emperor. Fue el primero, una persona común, o sea, no era de familia rica ni nadie adinerada. Una persona común y corriente, el primero que se convirtió en emperador. He earned people loyalty and trust. Se ganó la confianza y la lealtad de la gente. In addition, he was well liked by both soldiers and peasants. Los soldados y los campesinos gustaban de él, which helped him to maintain control, y así él mantenía el control de su reino. Liu Bang's rule was different from the strict legalism of the king. Aparentemente, la dinastía Qing, ellos no seguían las ideas de Confucio, sino las ideas del legalismo. Acuérdense que el legalismo era todo esto a partir de leyes. Todo eran leyes para mantener el control. Okay, so Liu Bang's rule was different from the strict legalism of Qing. He wanted to free people from harsh government policies. In addition to set new policies, Liu Bang changed the way government worked. He set up government structure that builds on the foundation begun by the king. He also relied on educated officials to help him rule, o sea que se apoyaba de gente educada para poder administrar su gobierno. Muy bien, todo esto que se ve aquí, el color naranja, le pertenecía a la dinastía Han. Vamos a ver si puedo sacar a ver, ahí me fui. Ok, aquí está, todo está rosado, que rosado, anaranjado más o menos. Y mire que también en esa época también se construyó el famoso, ¿cómo se llama esto? ¿Qué es esto, chicos? A ver, ¿quién sabe?
La muralla china.
Eso mismo, en la época de finales de Qing, inicios de Han, se construyó la famosa muralla china. ¿Y para qué se construyó la muralla china? A ver, ¿quién sabe?
Protección contra los invasores.
Para protegerse los invasores.
Eso mismo, para protegerse de esta área, porque aquí venían los mongoles que querían invadir, o si no, otras tribus que querían invadir a China. Okay, so that's why they built this huge wall that separates this area, Gobi, el desierto de Gobi, with China. Okay, chicos, excellent. Okay, now there's another picture that talks about the dynasty and some other things established. Remember, they follow the Confucius idea. Now, how was their life during those days? Now, remember Confucius? He really believed in the family. Confucius said that the family is the main element in a society. Okay, that was his philosophy. Family life was supported by strengthened in Han China. Confucius' idea about the family became important in Chinese society. The Confucian system, people were divided into 4 classes. Se dividía en 4 clases. The upper class, la clase alta, was made up of emperor, his court, and scholars, los estudiosos who held government positions. Now the second class, que era la más grande, was made of peasants, la comprendía los campesinos. La tercera clase, the next one, were the artisans who produced items for daily life and some luxury goods. And the fourth, que era la que está más abajo, eran los mercaderes, occupied with lower class that because they did not produce anything. Eran los mercaderes, los que vendían todo. Okay? The military was not an official class in the Confucian system. Still, joining the army offered a man a chance to raise in social status because the military was considered part of the government. Let's move on. Life of rich and poor, la vida de los ricos y de los pobres. The class only divided people into social rank. They did not indicate wealth or power. For instance, even though peasants made up the second highest class, they were poor. On the other hand, some merchants were wealthy and powerful despite being in the lowest class. People's lifestyle varied according to wealth. The emperor and his court lived in a large palace. The wealthy filled their home with expensive decorations. This included paintings, pottery, bronze lamps, and jade figures. Most people in the Han Dynasty, however, didn't live like the wealthy. Nearly 60 million people. Here in Panama, we are only 4 million. Nearly 60 million people live in China during the Han Dynasty. Imagínense, ahora son 5,000. 60 million. And about 90% of them were peasants. Y el 90, de los 60 millones, el 90 eran campesinos who lived in the countryside, que vivían en el campo. Heavy taxes and bad weather forced many farmers to sell their lands and work for rich landowners. By the last year of the Han Dynasty, only a few farmers were independent. Chinese peasants lived simple lives. They wore plain clothing made like fiber, native plants, and the main foods they ate were cooked grains. Ellos comían solamente granos. The revival of the family, because Confucius was the official governing philosophy with this regime, Confucian teaching about the family were also honored. En la dinastía Adán, ellos le rendían honor a la familia. Dice, los chicos, los niños, children were taught from birth to respect their elders. O sea que los chicos deberían respetar a los mayores. Disobey one parent was a crime. Desobedecer a su papá era un crimen. Even emperors had a duty to respect their parents. Hasta los emperadores tenían que respetar a sus padres. Confucius had taught that the father was the head of the family. Papá era la cabeza de la familia. In the family, the father had absolute power. Papá tenía un poder absoluto dentro de la familia. The Han taught, los Hans enseñaron that it was a woman's duty to obey her husband, and the children had to obey their parents. O sea que el papá y la mamá tenían, la mamá y los hijos tienen que respetar y seguir las indicaciones del padre en la familia, en la sociedad, en la dinastía Han. Okay, So let's stop right here. We are halfway of this chapter, and now let's watch a video that talks about the Han Dynasty, okay? Let's watch this video that talks about them. Let me see where I have it. Let me see, I think it's over here. Let me see. Oh, here it is. You are 7B. Here it is. A little bit slow, my machine, but anyway, still working. Okay, I'm coming. Here it is. So let's watch a video that talks about the Han Dynasty, guys. Han Dynasty, a very important dynasty in the history of China. Okay. So the same PowerPoint is here, as you see, in your platform, in case you want to check all the information that we just watched. Okay, Han Dynasty. Let's watch this one, and then we'll watch all the inventions that they create. Okay, Han Dynasty.
The Han Dynasty began in 206 BC when a man named Liu Bang, who had been born a peasant, led a group of generals to overthrow the Qin Dynasty. This started a 400-year period of prosperity, sometimes referred to as China's first golden age. The capital of the dynasty was at Chang'an, and at the time it was one of the biggest cities in the world. The Han Dynasty saw massive territorial expansion, with China's area almost doubling. The Han defeated the tribes to the north and signed treaties with the clans to the west. This made travel safer and led to the establishment of what became known as the Silk Road. This was the trade route connecting China with the Roman Empire, thousands of miles away in Europe. The Han also saw massive cultural developments, with Confucianism, which had been suppressed under the Qin, rising to become the state philosophy of China's aristocracy. Officials were evaluated on their conduct according to the Confucian values, and an imperial university was established to train them. It was also during the Han period that Buddhism spread to China from India. Buddhism's emphasis on compassion and universal salvation appealed to the masses. Along with Confucianism and Taoism, Buddhism became one of China's three main religions that would dominate the faith of the Chinese people for the next 2,000 years. The Han Dynasty gave rise to some of China's most well-known historical figures, such as Sima Qian, who wrote the Record of the Grand Historian, the definitive record of China's early history, and also Han Xin, the general who helped Liu Bang establish the Han Dynasty. The Han Dynasty was briefly interrupted in the year 9 AD, when the nephew of the empress, Wang Mang, seized the throne. 14 years later, Liu Xiu, a descendant of Liu Bang, eventually toppled him, and the Han Dynasty, with 12 more emperors, continued for another 200 years. But like all dynasties in Chinese history, the Han could not last forever. It officially ended in the year 220 AD. Trouble at court and uprisings across the empire led to its eventual downfall. The warlord Dong Zhuo led troops into the capital, kick-starting the battles between various warlords. Eventually, Cao Cao managed to establish the Wei state north of the Yangtze River. Sun Quan established the Wu state to the south of the Yangtze, and Liu Bei the Shu state in the west, starting the period known as the Three Kingdoms.
Okay, now let's watch the other one that talks about all the invention that they create during this.
Three Kingdoms.
Okay.
You need to know about the Han Dynasty because they had a huge impact on you. Anyone else thinking of Han Solo and the Empire? Oh, sorry. Let's focus. The Han Dynasty came into power after the Qin Dynasty. The people of China were fed up with the harsh legalist rule of Qin Shi Huangdi and welcomed a change. The Han rulers mixed legalism and Confucianism and came up with a solid government that ruled China for over 400 years. During this long period of stability and wealth, or Golden Age, people had time to be creative and come up with new inventions and discoveries that improved people's lives. For example, the Han Dynasty excelled at warfare and expanded their empire. All men served 2 years in the army, and advances in ironwork improved armor and made longer, better swords. They invented the crossbow and used kites, yes, kites, to measure distances, send messages, and scare enemies. I already mentioned the new and improved Han government. They used the centralized government of the Qin, but added Confucian ideas of leading by example and a moral, honest government. The Han set up a bureaucracy. It's a pyramid-shaped government with a few at the top and many at the bottom. Each level directs the people below them. The best thing the Han did was make their officials earn their jobs by taking a civil service exam. This ensured qualified people ran the government. Several farming inventions developed under the Han rulers. The chain pump moved water from low irrigation ditches and canals up to the fields. They made iron plows and the wheelbarrow, simple inventions that made farming easier. In industry, the Han invented a foot-powered machine that wound silk fibers onto a large reel. Silk was the #1 trade export of China, and the faster they could make it, the better. Under the Han, the Chinese learned how to mine salt from underground. They invented iron-tipped bamboo drills that reached as deep as 1,000 feet. They used the bamboo to bring the salt water up, boil off the water, and use the salt to preserve their meat and vegetables. You can thank the Han for inventing paper and the art of calligraphy. Before paper, they wrote on silk. Very expensive. Paper was cheap, so people could afford to write, and it made great books. New medical practices started under the Han Dynasty. The Chinese believed that illnesses were caused when the yin and the yang forces of the body were out of balance. Healers had to restore balance. They used acupuncture or needles for curing illnesses like headaches. Another medical technique is moxibustion, where powdered moxa is placed on skin and lit on fire. The heat reduces pain in diseases like arthritis. Hey, Michael Phelps used it before swimming in the Olympics. They also used wine as an anesthetic to take away pain. The Chinese knew how the human body worked. They used the heartbeat and pulse to judge a person's health, just like your doctor. They also knew that blood circulates from the heart and back again. The Han Dynasty rocked the science world. Their astronomers recorded comets, solar eclipses, and discovered that the moon shines by reflecting the sun's light. They invented the seismograph to detect the direction of earthquakes and the magnetic compass with a lodestone to tell direction. So when you're watching Han Solo saving the galaxy, remember the Han Dynasty and all of their amazing inventions and ideas that changed your world.
Okay, guys, with this video, we conclude the first section, the first part of this Han Dynasty. So we'll continue next week. Remember to complete vocabulary and also the assessment question in your notebook. And remember, next week, we have test number 1. Okay, guys? Okay, do you have any question? No question. Okay, guys, then see you next week. Have a nice weekend, guys. Bye-bye.